when having the conversation about side B, side A, which is just, for folks who don't know the labels, side A is like you just are gay and practice a gay lifestyle. Side B is you identify that you have same-sex desires, but you are celibate. Side X is you are like you're no longer gay. You were once gay, now you're no longer gay, right? Is that side X? And then what is side Y? I always get confused about
side Y. I don't want to claim that I'm saying this perfectly, so if there's someone in the comments who better understands side Y, go ahead. But it would be, in what I understand it to be, is you work at changing your attractions until they change, and it's not something you want to identify with.
So side Y is kind of like a bridge between side B and side X. Sounds like, yeah. So you work towards that, but you just don't identify. It sounds like, yeah. You just don't identify as that. Okay, so people have thought that like the only historical position that's like okay is side X. Like I was gay. I'm no longer gay no more. Right? That meme. And the parallel to men who many men are attracted to multiple women throughout the course of their lifetime, I think is one that isn't extended in good faith to folks who are same-sex attracted. Because now we have to get into, well, what do you mean by attracted? What do you mean by desire? Does desire always equal lust? Are you saying that, right? Because a man can be attracted to multiple women. The moment it becomes a sin is when you start lusting after multiple women. But generally speaking, if you're a dude going through life and you're married, you're still going to find other women attractive. But that doesn't mean you have to lust after them or pursue them in unhealthy, sinful ways. So I always found it interesting that same charity isn't extended to people who are same-sex attracted. And then when hearing you guys do your talk at Theology in the Raw, like you guys clarified the panel specifically. I think you guys were like, who was it that said, like, I'm not sitting here attracted to all these dudes, right? Like I have this now. And sometimes who was it that said that sometimes it even goes away? Like it goes away for a window of time and then it can come back. And so I found that very interesting. And you tell me what you think about this, but I think this becomes an issue of semantics. Yeah. And what do words mean? Because if someone goes through the 12 steps and they choose to continue identifying as an alcoholic or an addict, like I may be like, I wouldn't use those words to describe myself. I've dealt with addictions before, with food, with porn. I wouldn't continue saying, hey guys, I'm Ruslan and I'm an addict. I wouldn't use that language to describe myself. But I wouldn't excommunicate disfellowship, call someone dangerous, call someone a heretic, call someone a false teacher if they continue to use that sort of language to identify as an alcoholic, as an addict.
After the incredible success of our Bless God prayer journal, many of you guys began to ask for something that had a planner. And so we combined our Bless God prayer journal with a brand new leadership planner that jam-packs the same things from our prayer journal with a planner, goal setting, leadership meeting, and notes. With the next pages, you can see different sections right along here of this leadership planner where you can start out with actionable goals, 12 months of calendar, our original prayer journal prompts, our leadership journal with the proven problem solution framework, and of course, just free write notes. This leadership planner is based off of Matthew 25:14-30, which of course is the parable of the talents. The vision of the planner is to help you make the most of your time, talent, and treasure. Head over to blessgod.shop and get yours today. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.
Yet with this conversation, there's these hard lines drawn. So my first question to you is, do you think that that's am I using a fair parallel in terms of someone that goes through 12 steps and they still identify themselves as an addict, as a alcoholic, versus someone that gets sober and goes, you know what? No, like I refuse to say that those words over myself, right? And so question one is like, do you think that's a fair parallel?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that then the response is unwarranted in terms of the hard lines that are drawn? Because again, people in that community would never say, you're an idiot. How dare you? You identify as an alcoholic, even though you've been sober for 25 years. Heresy, you're going to hell or whatever. You're dangerous. You're right. Like, why do you think there's this? Because it sounds like the practice is the same. You're living as a heterosexual woman.
Yeah.
Right? So the outcomes are the same. The outcome is we're going to submit our sexuality. We're going to submit our bodies. We're going to submit our passions. We're going to submit it to the ways of God. But we're now getting into the language of it, right? Like, why do you think that there's such a stark contrast in terms of how these things are being dealt with?
I think there's a really interesting culture these days of trying to make our own personal convictions biblical convictions. I think the biblical conviction here is the sexuality piece, right? Like, we are called to surrender. Every single person is called to surrender their sexuality to Jesus if they are a follower of Christ. That means sex is for one man, one woman, married for life. That's it. Anything outside of that is against what God has called good. And so that's what we hold as the biblical conviction. Now, the personal conviction would be, if I experience something outside of that, and am I called to share that with the community that I'm in? In terms of, like, do I share my struggle? Am I honest with my struggle? Am I honest with, my mentor and my pastor? Am I honest with my community group? Am I honest with the church? Am I honest on a platform? Like, what does that look like? And I think again, it's kind of like when you meet someone and they're like, Christians shouldn't drink at all. And you're like, whoa, dude, like, the Bible, there's actually room for Christians to partake in drinking. Is it supposed to be responsible? Yes. Like, there's a mandate. There are clear instructions for how we are to partake with alcohol. But there's people who are personally convicted by Christ. That's like one of my things. I haven't drank in 6 years. That's a personal conviction. I believe it would be sinful for me to try and guilt people into feeling that same conviction when it's like the Holy Spirit will speak to you and convict you of those things. And so I find it a really, really interesting personal conviction, but a personal conviction that I've met other people who would say, hey, just between me and you, this is something that I have also struggled with, but my personal conviction is that I don't share. And I've never felt judged by those people or felt like, you're wrong, you're reading your convictions wrong. There are a lot of stumbling blocks to me publicly identifying as same-sex attracted, especially as someone in ministry, I think. But I feel personally convicted to share that story specifically because I never knew that a gay person could also be a Christian growing up, right? I never had that example. And so when I have friends, like, I'm from the Portland area, so I don't say gay. When I'm talking personally, I'll say it. But on a platform, I say same-sex attracted because in the Portland area, when you say gay, people think that means one thing and one thing only, when there's much more nuance. And so when I say same-sex attracted, usually people go, oh, like, that's interesting language. What do you mean by that? But when I have friends who say I'm a gay Christian, and when they say that, it becomes a reality for some young kid who's been struggling, who is deeply depressed, for them to hear, wait a second, I can be in right relationship with God while still struggling with my attractions. That's huge. Yeah. And so I think if we were to take our own personal convictions and place them on every single person, then we all have the same story, and there's no diversity in the body of Christ at that point. And if we all have the same one hopeful story, well, then there's not hope in these other areas, if that makes sense.
So you do not prefer the title gay Christian. Am I tracking correctly?
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think even in my book, I write about being gay, but for me, I try to use that on much more personal terms. So like I would never put in a bio gay Christian because I have a conviction about what's the first information that people hear about me.
Right. If gay is preceding Christian, just in a regular sense, it can come off as incomplete in a way.
Sure. I again, like, I don't have a problem with any of my friends who identify that way.
Yep.
I just think personally for me, that's not something. Well, I'll be honest. I think maybe this is maybe a conversation that isn't being had a lot. I think even in the same-sex attracted, gay, celibate Christian community, that title can become a little bit of an idol, because when you say I'm a gay Christian, or when you say I'm same-sex attracted, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm getting invited to be on podcasts. I'm getting invited to write books. Like, there can be a different type of adultery taking place because of that title. And so when I sit and go, okay, God, what have you called me to be in this public world? I don't personally feel convicted that God has called that to be my label.
Got it.
After the incredible success of our Bless God prayer journal, many of you guys began to ask for something that had a planner. And so we combined our Bless God prayer journal with a brand new leadership planner that jam-packs the same things from our prayer journal with a planner, goal setting, leadership meeting, and notes. With the next pages, you can see different sections right along here of this leadership planner, where you can start out with actionable goals, 12 months of calendar, our original prayer journal prompts, our leadership journal with the proven problem solution framework, and of course, just free write notes. This leadership planner is based off of Matthew 25:14-30, which of course is the parable of the talents. The vision of the planner is to help you make the most of your time, talent, and treasure. Head over to blessgod.shop and get yours today. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.